Good morning, honors biology students. This is video lecture number 2. Remember, we're in chapter 11, which is complex inheritance and human heredity. And yesterday we stopped on, I believe it was slide number 16, and it was just showing table 11.1, reviewing terms of homozygous and heterozygous. And it also mentioned we're going to get into 4 recessive genetic disorders, starting with cystic fibrosis. So let's go ahead and move into that. Moving to slide 17, we get a brief definition, or at least what cystic fibrosis does. So cystic fibrosis we know is a recessive genetic disorder. It affects the mucus-producing glands, digestive enzymes, and sweat glands. So there's 3 things which it affects, and I have visualized at least 2 of those in the same slide with those pictures. Moving to slide 18, this genetic disorder is most common among Caucasian, those with lighter pigmentation. What happens with this disease is chloride ions are not absorbed into the cells, but are instead excreted through sweat. Now, as a result, without sufficient chloride ions in cells, water does not diffuse from the cells. This, as a result, produces a secretion of thick mucus, which affects many areas of the body, as we shall see. This thick mucus causes a clog in the ducts in the pancreas, so it affects production within the pancreas, one of the organs of the body. It interrupts digestion, in other words, the breakdown of nutrients, and blocks the tiny respiratory pathway within the lung, which means it can affect breathing. Patients who have this disease are at a higher risk for infection due to the buildup of excessive mucus in the lungs, means their chance of getting particular infections goes up due to this. So this is a challenge you can already see. So how do we treat this disorder? How do we deal with this recessive genetic disorder called cystic fibrosis? Well, the disorder is treated by physical therapy, medications, special diets, and of course the use of replacive digestive enzymes, because remember, their digestion is affected. And you can see that's also why they do special diets, medications, and the physical therapy to help along the way. So can we test for this? Yes, we can. There are genetic tests which can be used to determine if you are a carrier for this genetic disorder, meaning that you're heterozygous. You don't necessarily express it, but you have the genetics that you could pass on. And this is important, especially when thinking about the future and having children. All right, so let's move on to our second of the 4 recessive genetic disorders. So that's albinism. Albinism is a genetic disorder that results in the absence of the skin pigment melanin in both the hair and eyes. So as a result, people with this have white hair, very pale skin, and pink pupils. Now, the absence of pigment in the eye can lead to problems with the vision. In other words, how they see and perceive things, which, as we know, our vision is very vital to our functionality, and it's very challenging without it. So people with albinism need to be especially careful when going out in the sun, as they are more prone to UV radiation. Hence, they need to limit their exposure, or at least make sure they're wearing ways to protect their skin, whether it's clothing or SPF on the skin. Now, I did want to mention just at least 2 people that are well known that actually have this condition. One is Kelly Gallagher. She was the athlete which was the first Briton to win a Winter Paralympics gold medal for the Super G race at the Sochi Winter Olympics of 2014. There's also Alshaima Quegir. Hope I pronounced that right. Apologies if not. She's a parliamentarian and activist. And in fact, if you notice in the picture on the bottom left-hand side, it says that she was actually the first albino member of parliament of Tanzania. So that's pretty amazing to think about, that despite her condition, she hasn't let that slow her down, and she still pursued her career and her dream. Now let's move on to the third of the 4 recessive genetic disorders, and that is Tay-Sachs disease. Tay-Sachs disease has to do with at the chromosomal level. So chromosome 15 is the location of the gene where this condition is found, as circled on the image on slide 28. Now let's move a little bit more into this. This genetic disorder is more common among Jewish people of Eastern European descent. So just like albinism was more common among Caucasians, this refers to a particular ethnic group that tends to have this genetic disorder. And it's identified often by a cherry red spot on the back of the eye. So they usually do some eye tests and are able to indicate this. Just once again remind you that it is a recessive genetic disorder and how carriers can pass this on potentially. This genetic disorder is caused by the absence of the enzyme which is responsible for breaking down gangliosides, which are fatty acids. Just in case you're curious, and I do have a visual there. These fatty acids are normally produced and then dissolved as the brain develops, so something part of normal brain development. Alright, so we're going to take a break and stop right here. Just wanted to show you that image on slide 32, which just zooms in a little bit so you can see what I'm referring to as far as part of brain development. We'll continue talking more about Tay-Sachs disease in tomorrow's video lecture. If you have any questions, you can leave questions down in the comments below or send me an email message. Have a nice day, and I look forward to seeing you guys either during office hours or when we have our group session on Thursday. Have a nice day. Goodbye.